And welcome everybody to the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council Port Environmental Sustainability Committee. We're starting here October 18th at 6:30. Looking to see if we have any stakeholders, any students. I see nobody in that room, so I've called to order. I'll do the roll call. I'll go in reverse order this time. So Mary Chan, I don't see. I didn't get an email asking to be excused. So for the minutes, at least currently, we don't have Mary Chan in attendance. Peter Rothe, same thing. I didn't get an email informing me of his absence, so I would mark him as absent. David Samperio.
Here.
Craig Goldfarb.
Here.
Jason Herring. Can anybody receive an email or hear from Jason? Not seeing him. Pat Nave. Okay. Yeah, I'd encourage Pat to call in if he could on that 699-900-6833. And then enter the ID number on the agenda, pound. Here you, Gwen Henry.
Present.
And Thomas Norman's present. Okay. So general public comments on non-agenda items. Anybody like to comment?
I would if I could.
Yeah, everybody can, so please.
No, I just wanted to, the last couple of meetings that I wasn't here, it's because of the port PMA shipping companies diverting ships because of our contract negotiations, which is affecting the job opportunities here in this port because they're going to Savannah. They're being diverted to Savannah, to Texas, somewhere else. They're anchored because they can't move cargo like we do, but that's one of the PMA tactics that they send jobs away. And so again, just job opportunities are a lot less, especially for our casuals and our Class B membership. So just that's why I haven't attended the last two. I had to work, but just in general for the port, for the labor, it's pretty contentious when it comes to that. PMA doesn't want to sit down and talk. They just want to as long as they can, stall. So just to let you know that that's what's going on with the labor. And but I'm here today, so thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you for comment. Any questions, reactions, or anybody else have a public comment?
So I thought that this was already that they had resolved or they'd come to some conclusion on this.
On our contracts?
Yeah, I mean, this is public comment, so I'm not supposed to really talk or comment. So if on some other time, I guess we should be speaking about this. So I'm sorry, I apologize, but I did want to say that I missed the last meeting and I had told Thomas that I was sick, and I had COVID. I survived, obviously. And I will say that some of the medication really helped. They had this new medication called Paxlovid that knocked it all out for both me and my wife in record time. And I can't say enough about how science has really progressed since the beginning of this. So
well, that's great, and I do appreciate that you did notify me, and the minutes should show that it was excused, and I'm very pleased to hear you had a full recovery. And I appreciate the tip on the Paxlovid. When I had it, I tried to get it. By the time I saw the doctor to get it, she said, well, it's probably too late. I had a pretty mild case, but it's we're being warned at the university that there's a very good chance there's going to be another big outbreak very soon, and people around, a lot of people like me are at high risk. So I will take that under advisement. Any other comments?
Well, I'll just piggyback on that. I back to back together at the same time got the flu and COVID vaccine and did fine. Not even a blip. So feel free, guys.
you know, my kids and I, we've all, thanks to community things, one of the events we attended for Youth and Outreach, got my kids vaccinated myself. So it's not, on the other hand, my wife who didn't go, she had a little harder time finding it, but it's out there. Okay, well, any other non-agenda item that's not really agenda, so that's appropriate there. So next, action items, Pat, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you,
I'm on
yes.
Okay, I'm on the phone. That's why.
Okay,
But if we have anything that we're going to take a vote on or something, could we take it first? Because we got kind of invited some folks over for dinner and they're on their way. I'm going to have to leave early.
okay, yeah, we don't have any action items. You know, I put that on the agenda just as a place we would discuss those, but there really was no action item there. So, you know, in terms of important votes, those will be in the next meeting, or if they're urgent, we'll have to do a special meeting. Gwen, is your hand still up, or is that an old hand?
No, it's down. I'm just
Sorry,
leaning
hold
on
on.
my hands.
Well, with that, any discussion that we might have as to future topics and possibly anything where the input of our members would probably be the things to start with.
Yeah, okay, so we have comments and suggestions from stakeholders and committee members. So let's get those.
One announcement, I guess. Is this appropriate?
Sure.
November the 12th is going to be kind of groundbreaking or kickoff or something, food included, at West Harbor. Probably got an email about it, you know, asking if you want to attend. It's free. It'll have food and everything. It goes from like 11 to 2 or something on the 12th of November. That's it.
Well, what was the location of that again? Yeah.
Well, it'll be done at West Harbor, you know, where Old Ports of Call is, or was.
Oh, okay, that's by the port committee's hosting that one.
Yeah, Port, and I guess probably West Harbor. West Harbor's probably paying for it.
All right, other comments or suggestions for Pat or Gwen, I'm sorry.
Well, actually, I wanted people to know that I'm trying to pursue, there's a fairly famous botanist, kind of one of those celebrity botanists. Anyway, he is actively seeking a neighborhood that wants to go native plant, and with native plants in the yards. I mentioned it to somebody who's in contact with him right now, and as well as the park, that there might be interest here. So if anyone knows of that kind of interest, but there's also another program, which is the Cool Blocks program, which is ongoing. So that's something to consider for next year. For each of you in your respective communities, there's actually funds that can be gotten to help your project. So that's something to consider. And if you want to know more about this Joey's Cabaret thing, we can talk later. And yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Other comments?
Would this also be legislation and things like that?
I have legislation for number 7. So I'll give a quick update. I was able to go to the last part of the joint environmental sustainability committee meeting with Central and Coastal. On my campus, we were having a green event for the first half hour or so of that. So I had to go from one meeting to a Zoom in my car, which was a good, really interesting event. There were folks talking about electric planes, and Long Beach Port was talking about their innovations, but that wasn't the focus of the Joint Environmental Sustainability Committee. No action items they asked for our input on, but at the end they did suggest that if we're attending the first Thursday, which I said I often do, that they thought it would be good to have, more presence at the table, that there is a neighborhood council that, table that's being shared with the San Pedro, chapters and those interested in sustainability or port issues. If you wanted to help with the table, you can let me know, or you can directly let the chairperson of that group know that you go. Or to be honest, I think you could just show up and say you'll sit around the table and field inquiries or be available. So unlike some of the past meetings where there was a lot, it was a slower meeting. I thought so I'll pause. Any questions or more thoughts on that? I didn't, and if you guys were on the beginning, I missed if anybody else was on that call, but I didn't see anyone I recognized from Northwest San Pedro. Okay, seeing none. I thought the attending the Port Neighborhood Council Chamber Presidents meeting was also interesting. I'm going to ask Vic for help in posting these if you think they'd be of general interest to a company. I will share the screen because I want to make sure we all have this information. It relates to things. So can people see the overview of funding sources that was shared at that meeting? So I want to figure out how to upload this PDF document where they spent a lot of their time going through. And I just wanted to call attention to these very large numbers, right? We've probably seen these in the paper, 16.7 billion for ports and waterways. That's a good amount. They highlighted from a Los Angeles perspective, looking at Department of Transportation grants, 2.25 million's a big number. And for reduction of truck emissions in port facilities, kind of fits both the themes of this committee. Or no, that was it's like billion, I'm misreading my numbers, and 400 million. So those were ones that the port, is optimistic about getting a nice chunk of that money. And so we want to stay tuned on exactly what that means for our community, how that's being spent. And yeah, they didn't highlight that one too much. In the Inflation Reduction Act, there's 3 billion for reducing air pollution and 5 billion for climate pollution reduction grants. So that's a lot of money they're going after. The state has a lot of money for these different areas. I know Jason, we're here. If you're listening, note the recreational grants for those, and note that Altacia is specifically listed there with the Port of LA. So wanted that to be the focus of everyone's attention. The hybrid and ZE truck, and I have a different handout on that in particular. See probably a lot of experimentation at the port for those programs, and a pretty sizable amount of money there. I think that's the last slide here. The follow-up money was a little presentation on the community empowered corridors for electric trucks, these ZEVs, and some of the companies that will be involved in the e-truck technology, trying to reduce the pollution and also make sure the supply chain is running as efficiently as possible, saying so much is moved by truck versus train right now. So those were a couple of handouts that I'm going to work to get put in the Dropbox. And if the people are, I think what I'll also do is just email the committee. I know how to do that. I'll just attach these two and figure out how to.
Thomas, just send it over to Christina and ask her to load it up. She'll
Right. Yeah.
do it really quick. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Christina Smith.
All right, because yeah, sending the agenda. So those will be added then to our minutes for this meeting. Any questions? I just thought it was really interesting. They're very optimistic. Not a lot of details on exactly how what exact money they've got, but it sounds like the port will have cash available to it that it hadn't in the past.
I did have a question in regards to the truck, the improvements to the trucking corridors. How much is the port responsible for? Because I wanted to talk when we get to suggestions on future items. There's a portion of that I think that we could make a strong suggestion for.
Okay, and for that, I don't know the answer, so we could frame that in a way to try to get an answer to the question from the board. Okay, and no other questions, otherwise we can move to.
Did they specify anywhere where they wanted to spend it? Have they been looking at it, or are they just saying we're going after this money? I mean, they have to be putting in a proposal. Did they release that information?
No, I didn't see the detail on that, just that they were working on that, and, you know, and the most detailed was the presentation I shared about the trucks, that was good. They even didn't highlight the Altasy one that I kind of singled out. So the little highlighted areas were the ones they spoke to. And I've noticed those meetings, people are kind of going a little bit faster too than we'd always like. You know, I feel like a little reputation of asking, and, you know, a lot of questions, which can be, you know, annoying. I was that student when I was younger. So, but I'm glad that I'm going. I'm understanding what's going, you know, I'm understanding the people in the meeting a lot better than I was when I first started this. So, but that's what I'm looking for. You know, what does this mean specifically? So we know if we're a stakeholder, so we, you know, understand where there are the opportunities, and it relates to what, you know, I'd like to see our committee working on. And we've talked about in some of the earlier meetings, you know, how do we make sure that Northwest San Pedro, to the extent there is more grant money available, we're putting in, you know, proposals. We're really advocating to make sure we get our fair share, you know, of the money. It doesn't always seem to be spent proportionally in our area. Gwen, is that a new hand? Okay, David, Pat, any other comments?
Just to follow up, if you could ask them for a copy of their since they're putting in for the grant, ask for a copy of their grant proposal.
Yep.
Maybe we can review that. And my concern was when they went to the natural gas trucks. It was a whole big thing, and they bought a whole bunch of them, and then they said, oh well, you know, they didn't really work out. But, you know, that's what they said. But I would go to my customers and I'd see natural gas trucks sitting out there, tractors, and I think that nobody really evaluated them. So it was, and I think maybe that it would, if we find out what they're requesting the money for, we may be able to be ahead of this and be able to research it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that idea. David, your hand was next.
Yeah, well, real quick, I was going to say something else, but to piggyback what Craig said, that sometimes that we find that grants are given to certain companies, they put out something and then they don't work as well as they should, so they just kind of sit there. So Craig, you're right. There's just a couple of machines that we have out there, whether they're a top handler, which is a top pick, putting the containers up, or just trucks in general, but that tends to happen. So I agree with you, Craig. Sometimes you just need to ask, what are you going to do with it? The other thing that I was going to say is that there's absolutely money from that and other resources funding that is going to go towards our rails and our executive board meetings that this has been talked about. We have money slated for rails, which will help in congestion with the truckers as far as the environment, which is very good, and it's been a long time coming. Also, hydrogen trucks that I believe there's one they mentioned that's coming and already here at the port that they're testing out. So, but there's definitely things that they're doing with that money, which is good. That's coming here, but the more here, the better. But yeah, so there's definitely some things that we've talked about in Local 13 that they are using that money for infrastructure. It's just going to take a while, but yeah, that's all I had.
Would the group be interested when I put in the request for the detail in the grant? Would we be interested in maybe doing a field trip to even see the technology? About 2 years ago through the university, I got invited and they showed me, and in my thought, we went to the conference room and then they brought us out to the facilities and showed us the hydrogen, and everybody talked to the port was more bullish on the hydrogen for the trucks than the electric. Right now I see in the grant, they're asking for a lot of electric. So kind of to Craig's point, it's like, you know, it would be good to have feedback on, you know, trying to guide them to buy things that are more likely to, you know, be used and not, you know, buy them, you know, just to understand that process a little bit better. So you don't have a bunch of electric. We saw 2 different types of electric, and, you know, they seem to be wisely testing one versus another. And, you know, what's the data? You know, does the public ever see, you know, what happens? That it's not 100% transparent. So that might be something. I guess I'll ask just because I'm curious, but I could make an ask on behalf of the group and share that date and time with everyone.
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested in doing that.
I agree. I see Pat's hand up. Are you?
Yeah, no, but you know, any reactions? So Craig, David, we're interested.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see that.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in that.
And right now, like I said, just in the last so many months, maybe the last 6, 7, 8 months, hydrogen has been very big. So the discussion. So now it's a matter of
Yeah.
now it's just of actually doing it, and I think we do have one. So
Yeah, when there's millions of dollars to buy something. So
oh yeah, people come out of the woodwork for grants.
Pat,
Do you have indication from the port as to how they're going to use these sources in composing their budget for the coming year? This is budget season for the port, and when they start composing their budget, so good to know if they're looking at some of these things as sources for additional funding for their capital improvement program. That's one thing. The other thing that strikes me is that this is a good resource document for us to use as a reference as we look at environmental comments, particularly on mitigation or on remediation. So it's good that we'll have this to look at as we compose those comments.
well, and with some of our past recommendations, you know, on mitigation, some of this money could be used to, you know, that would be less of an argument. They don't have the money to do it, or, you know, there would be money earmarked towards that. Gwen.
Well, they've got the money. They just don't, you know, the port makes for every dollar that they take in, 50 cents of that is net profit. So they've got the dough, but I'm thinking on 2 of the comments recently, we said, hey, how about using rail access for the BOPAC and the ECOSEM projects rather than trying to move everything by truck. And so this would be an example. Somebody mentioned a little while ago about train stuff. This would be a good source for you know, paying for that industrial sidetrack coming down Yacht Street.
Gwen.
So I see a really huge concern in accountability here because I've been following, you know, their studies on what kind of trucks they're going to use, and I remember thorough testing of all sorts of trucks, and this is outside trucks, the transport trucks, not just what was on the technology inside the port. And you know, they're trying each type of technology in order to really hone down and take responsibility for the thing that what's going to be best bang for the buck. Now, I do know that natural gas, the reason for that is that they needed to purchase some very quickly because natural gas is a transition fuel. It's cleaner than the other, you know, diesel and the rest of it. So that's a transition fuel to get cleaner until you can get to the other technologies, which is hydrogen and electric or hybrid or whatever needs to be done. And they continue to study the technologies of what was out there, what was available in that market, you know, what the mechanical engineers, they've got to come up with this stuff. Now I am a little bewildered that they're talking about jumping all the way to hydrogen because the technology isn't there. It's just not there. What? I mean, we've got a $2 million grant that we're going for to bring hydrogen fuel to the port. City of Los Angeles put that in. I would love to keep updated with that as to where that is, those grants, if they've been accepted, what the process is, what the deadlines are. But hydrogen, it's just not there. So I don't understand with all of those other, I mean, I've seen so many PowerPoints of all of the studies that they've done for all of the other technologies. I truly believe that there's a problem in accountability. And the reason I also say this is because there was a grant provided is Harbor Community Benefits Foundation also tied to some of this grant proposal stuff. I
Well,
was,
I'm going to interrupt to the order of things, I mean, because this has been a subject of the Joint Sustainability Committee for a long time. Richard Kavanagh's got all of the latest stuff on the timing and the mandates for electricity as opposed to gas and so on. So I haven't kept up with it, but he's knowledgeable about that. Have you talked to him about that or attended that meeting?
I missed this last one. I'll look at the recordings. Yeah, but that was a topic of conversation.
Has been for a number of months, actually.
Okay.
Particularly the hydrogen. I just don't know what the status of all of that is.
No,
It's non-existent at the moment.
Well, I don't know.
It's non-existent.
So let's go to David.
Yeah, no, I agree with what Gwen is saying, that it's non-existent. I think they're putting the cart before the horse, and the buzzword, and so maybe for them to get grants, hydrogen, yay, great, but you're right. There's really nothing. There's nothing out there. So
Practicality.
Yeah.
There has to be something that functions. If gas is sitting there parked, what are they using?
Right.
Is it greener? What?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and so we'll seek some more information. We can try to get some of the experts to answer those questions. That can move us into item 7, updates on legislation or meetings with government officials and departments. And I put the hyperlink if you want to see the detail on Senate Bill 905. Gwen, I think you wanted to speak to that.
I was having some difficulty. I was reading some of the commentary. There are concerns about it. It actually is one Senate bill of a whole collection of Senate bills towards climate change action and legislation, and they all are kind of together as a big lump in order to proceed further. Was there a particular reason why this Senate bill above the others was chosen? Because I would like to comment on the whole group at some point, but.
Okay, this was the only one when I put out requests for things to discuss that I saw, but we do have the generic, on the agenda, we agendized discussion on legislation or meetings, and so if you have had meetings or have something, on that, I think that's germane to talk about. So I wasn't trying to exclude it. I just, listed that, and I even did a link if people wanted to see what it was. So if that's not one you want to speak to, so what was the current version of that one, Dave, published?
Yeah, it is published. I actually copied and pasted it into a Word document. I couldn't see what the changes were or what from the version that you just immediately see. But the concern is that sucking carbon dioxide or carbon dioxide as part of the oil industry, oil refining, and also extraction from the earth. There's a lot of carbon dioxide. They're supposed to be sucking it up and containing it. Problem is that this has been kind of a law and a rule for a while, and it hasn't really been working. They're trying to refine it. The problem is that this is what other people say, is that the actual act of trying to prevent carbon dioxide from getting into the atmosphere during the refining process and the rest of it actually requires energy, which uses and puts carbon dioxide and other GHGs into the air. So there's a concern about this whole process anyway, as opposed to transitioning and really trying to get to greener technologies in the first place, not continuing to keep up with the try to come up with a way to ease off of gas and oil and transition over to other technologies.
Oh,
So
And I do, this was chaptered, this was passed, and it's kind of reminding me too, as we go through these, to not kind of request, in general, is not to spend too much time or to try to focus our work on what affects San Pedro Northwest in particular. So that's good. Are there other bits of legislation or meetings, information from government officials that seem like they would fit with our more immediate work?
well, there's one that also came through. This is one that is kind of in all Los Angeles, but the oil and gas geographic setbacks. We have a lot of oil wells that are right within neighborhoods, all through CD 15. Any new oil wells definitely have to have a 3,200-foot setback between oil wells and sensitive sites. Doesn't do anything for the existing ones, but that's what's it passed. I don't know if the governor has signed it. It looks like it. As of January 1st, 2023, all operators must submit sensitive receptor inventory maps. So this is quite something. Now, to that point, this is like the third or fourth time that this kind of bill has come across our state legislature, and I'm amazed that it is 3,200 feet. But back in the 20s, just so that everybody knows, Los Angeles, I'm sure all of you have seen the history, oil wells all through Los Angeles. And so there was a period of time in the 20s when a lot of legislation went in and they just banned oil wells from all sorts of parts of Los Angeles. And that's why there's now a Hollywood, for the most part, does not have any oil refining. There's buildings there where there were oil wells. Venice, the rest of it, same thing. So the fight over this was something. Anyway, so it was passed. That's one thing. There's another nuclear energy, Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant has been extended. Its activity is being extended. It's not being shut down. There is carbon neutrality and clean electricity those have passed as well. And so once again, these are all just to be together. There's something that is relevant to us did not pass, and that's modifications to cap and trade, which is, if there's a heavy GHG producing industry in the port, they're not revising the cap and trade. It can still be a heavy polluter here with the trading of.
They can trade for offsets. Okay, so that.
Exactly. So, and there's a few others, and I'll just send it to you guys.
Okay, and for details like that too, I'd encourage if we could do maybe a written report for us to look at, and then we can use this time to comment, go a little bit deeper. But thank you for that, and thanks for keeping it tight. Pat? You're muted, Pat. You see your lips, but the phone says mute.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you go. Do you need me for a quorum? My dinner guests have arrived.
Well, let's, yeah, we actually do right now because the number, we have eight members.
If we're not going to vote on anything, there's no, we can discuss.
Yeah, well, there are no motions. There are no motions to vote on. So from that perspective, yeah, the quorum is important today.
Oh, look, I didn't realize that the mute button on my screen here would also mute my phone, in which case I'll just do that so you can't hear me. I can still listen and unmute if there's anything that, that comes up. Okay, I'll say.
And you probably know about WildFest, EcoFest. That's our next item. And Gwen, do you want to share more details on that with our committee?
The only thing that is of greatest concern is setting down a date. Of course, potential dates in April. It's actually been extended to May. I don't know if there's any big events, whether it's port related, David, or education related, school kids, things like that, that are conflicts with a date. We're trying to find a tentative open date. And it looks like May would be more amenable to that. So if anybody has any input on that, conflicts or things that they think would be disagreeable to that. Also, it's going to be an ad hoc committee. The president is going to create kind of a select group of the people from the different committees that are probably best for planning this. But it would be good on the day of that people attend and participate. We will have our own booth, most likely. Should this be agreed upon and voted upon by the board. This is an event that we have done in the past, so we'll see. And we'll see if the pandemic and the rules also allow us to do all these things. So it's all very tentative, but look at dates. And also vendors for an environment and public safety event. It's going to be very large. Peck Park is very interested in doing this. It's also to revitalize Peck Park and get people interested in using the park again with that last event that occurred, the shooting. So,
And so I haven't attended, but this is a combined emergency preparation, celebration of the wilderness, and celebration of the environment, all next one. So I find that an interesting combination, but Peck Park seems like a great location given those themes. So if people are interested in volunteering, we can wait for the ad hoc to be formed. We can ask to be put on that, or I'm sure there's opportunity for us to help and at least try to support it. When you said it's been moved to May, I've noted that in my notes. And probably weekend. I'm guessing this is a Saturday or Sunday event typically.
Generally, yes. And if anybody has any input, the date is really the thing. Feedback. School conflicts, if everybody's on vacation, the kids are not around for volunteering, especially the high schoolers, things like that.
Any feedback, suggestions, vendor ideas? Okay, well, we'll move on to 9, which will be fast. I didn't receive any motions to share with the public, so we can't, but I want to encourage folks, if we want to develop, take action, we've got kind of a set for the port related, the environmental sustainability related motions. So I'll skip through that. And I don't, while seeking information, but it's open to anybody in the committee. Has anybody heard, have any updates on port capital improvement, project development committee, PAIP, any updates on that? We've discussed how we should be working to advocate and better understand that. I'm actively listening at the meetings I go to try to get the details on that level. And instead, I'm hearing kind of broader brushes. There's a lot of money coming, but I don't have anything new to report there. But that's why we're a team. Anybody else learn anything? Or want to direct me to somebody I should sit down with or figure out how to get more information? Okay, and now, glad to see, both David and Craig, in particular, I've heard a few priorities and projects, but I really wanted to make sure that the body deliberated on, for the coming year. We've got a series of meetings, several months left, just to have a discussion on what should be the priorities of this committee relative to the port. So we can start thinking about actions and how we'll get to those. And similarly with the environment and sustainability, outside of things that we've said. So specifically looking to David and Craig first, if they have ideas, and then there's a pause for anybody to start this part of the conversation.
So I was, when we were looking at the purple air stuff, I really thought that what the real problem was aggregating the information, because it exists. They have it out there. You can go in there. So I think one of our priorities and with the people you're contact with is that maybe it'd be more important that we set up, we could finance somebody putting together a database for us that could be monitored and then be from these different sources, because we can get information from the port. We can actively get stuff like purple air, and it'd be much easier to do. And of course, we could go through a third party to do that. And on the and then there's two other areas where we have not, we've discussed this in the past in Port Committee, which was light pollution and noise pollution. I can, David, I can tell when they're slowed down at the port because I don't hear the noise. and I'm hearing compromise. So when I don't hear them dropping the lids at night, usually around, once it gets quiet on the freeway and everything, I can hear the lids dropping. And when I don't hear them so much, I know that it's slowed down, even though there's so many containers out there still. So, I mean, these are areas where we could get the port to dramatically, these are, affect our quality of life, because these are measures that can be done easily. How could, when we suggested, they could put up some retaining walls to keep the sound in, they could put, top control, how do you put it? Shades on top of the, on the lights that are in the port, so they don't shine up into the atmosphere or out past a certain area. These are things that are very low cost and could probably be done easily, or could be included in their plans, and they've been very resistant to them.
Okay. So that would be a great action for a resolution for us to work on, requesting they take these specific, and it was brought up at past meetings. I think, Pat's talked about a process on the air monitors monitoring air quality, but the light pollution and noise is the most detailed I've heard. So I think those are great. Want to hear from others, make sure there's support, but I see that being actionable. Gwen?
I concur with the light pollution. Arizona has taken great measures on that. They actually have increased light pollution nonetheless, but there is a lot to be done with that. Even if it's just a transition to that kind of light over a period of time. David probably can comment on the need for illumination directly on the ships, what the angles need to be for that. So not everything, but mercury vapor light as well, all those orange lights. I don't know if there's an actual need for that. That used to be the reason for those orange lights originally was it was a psychology experiment. They felt that orange made criminality go down. And so there's a whole study on that. So I don't know if the orange actually has a benefit for visibility. I thought yellow would, but with what I wanted to mention, one thing that has always been a concern, and again, Wilmington has brought this up, is the corridor of trucks that go, forgive me, I don't remember the name of the street, but it's very worn. I've driven on it myself. I am at a loss why the corridors around the harbor do not have facilities, like large facilities such as you might see on the 5 and the 99 or any of the other trucking corridors. Why is there not a large scale parking place where truckers can go to sleep, park, gas, shower, eat, those kind of things that can get them away from the neighborhoods? That is an investment that it's unimaginable to me that it hasn't been done yet. And I don't know who the funding would be for that, but it seems to be that should be a requirement.
I wanted to ask a clarifying question on the orange mercury lights. I was not aware they were mercury. Is there an environmental concern? I mean, mercury is really dangerous.
Forgive me, that's what I remember them being called at the time. The orange color may have at this point be different, but yeah, I will investigate the actual lights themselves. But they were mercury at one point. And there are lights that are still being used that, should they break, it's not that great. Good thought.
All right, so, in terms of priorities, I think this is a good list of priorities. David, anything you wanted to add? Anything anything you disagree with? Kind of looking for the committee just to, give direction that's more than one person. I guess I'm two. I like all those. We have a third.
Right. Well, I know you guys were mentioning the light pollution, and something happened to where my mic, I'm on the phone now because my mic kind of went out, so I didn't want to bother anybody and say anything. But so when you mentioned the light pollution, you said at night, or I'm sorry, it was just, it's too much light. I didn't hear it.
Much light, and if we were to do a resolution, one of the mitigating things would be there's shades that could be installed to reduce the light going into the community, right? So there's less light pollution bothering residents, which seem reasonable. So to me, this reminds me of the work kind of we've seen subgroups, people just working and bringing before the different groups. I think it was environmental group, sometimes the port group, letters. So, and this isn't really a letter in response to something from the port, but I see this as might be more of a resolution, more generically just recommending, right? Because it's not project specific, it's just operationally noting that our stakeholders find, issues, right? The noise pollution is causing discomfort, light pollution is causing discomfort. And then if we could kind of divide this up, if people knew more about one or another, come back at the next meeting with a draft of some specific recommendations, like the shades with maybe a little bit more detail, noise pollution and retaining walls, or other ideas to mitigate. And then the idea that so those, no disagreement, we could look at a resolution for that.
Yeah.
Like that's okay.
No. Yeah, I was gonna say, and I agree. I think the ports that are close to neighborhoods, which would be Trepac and Yangming, and just trying to think of, and then the other ones would be more Terminal Island, Long Beach, not necessarily close to neighborhoods. But I think that's something I would agree with, and the noise and the lights. And definitely, like Craig was saying, when I was young, I used to hear the banging of the lids going down. But you kind of get used to it. But at the same time, there is noise and there is light, especially in that the close ports, the close terminals that are by the neighborhoods. And so I agree.
Can be jarring, and I've heard also on the noise, right? There's some low cost changes to the rail that could make the railroads, not have to be as noisy when they're operating. So that's come up in this committee a couple times. So, noise pollution, it's where I think, a few people put their heads together in different aspects, but I really like the theme of noise, light pollution. I figured that one might get Pat's attention, because I've heard him talk about trains. What about, is there more general support for this idea they should explore a place for the trucks? I've heard another comments too, concerned about the damage the trucks do when they go off in the neighborhood, right? When they don't go on the right road. So it seems a little related to stakeholder concerns about how damaging they are. And this came up at the Dominguez Hills conference, the Long Beach port guy. The one thing he was kind of attacked on, and then afterwards, two people came and said, why are you allowing your trucks to destroy my neighborhood in Long Beach? So it's not, LA's not alone in their concern about it. He seemed to get it a lot, because he shifted all the blame. Once we're off the port, what is he going to do? But the citizens thought there's a lot he could do by who he lets in the port. Craig.
Yeah, well, because there's a lot of these, like downtown, and I'm pretty sure there's one or two on PCH, because there was limited parking. A lot of the problems with these things is the trucks idle because when they're sitting in them, you know, they want to watch TV, they want to do this, that, another thing. I mean, maybe an approach, you know, one of the things is, you know, why can't we do plugins with the ships? Why don't we make, you know, start working on, you know, if instead of trucks idling, that they can go to places and plug in and get and run their heaters and air conditioning and stuff like that. I mean, it's a change, but it's something we could advocate for. It'll take long term, but it would make a significant difference in air quality.
Okay, and I might rephrase what I put a note on was just corridor trucks around harbor, but it's more like minimizing neighborhood impact of the trucks. And because Craig's idea with the plug-in, right? Was just having the spot to go, it's what's at the spot. Gwen?
Well, that's what I'm talking about, is that we know that, well, what is really the hope is that there will be an organization, a logistics organization, so that you know, just like you get a pager at a restaurant, you can go and entertain yourself until you get the pager, and then the timing will be where you finally go and get your table. Trucks, at some point, what really should happen is all the way from corporate designing of a new product, to the packaging, to the materials to manufacture it, to the 2-year wait. You finally have your slot for your cargo containers. It goes on the ship, and then the trucks are coming in to take those cargo containers. There should be a holding places where the flow of it, you know, they've improved the flow of trucks going into the port, but there's no holding areas. There's nothing to allow those trucks to have a pause moment in case there's a scheduling problem or anything. And there should be a place. And it does include plugins, you know, for this kind of thing, so that there is no idling. But at some point, there's going to be hydrogen. There's going to be electric. There's those stations should already be created. But if the volume of cargo is only going to continue to grow as our population grows, these are things that should be built into the plan, and there should be a large amounts of property in certain areas on these corridors of where the trucks are being designed to go. Freeways to the port, holding patterns, places, that should be a given.
Anyone else? I don't know if you can do the raise hand function, Pat. Are you trying to speak with your hand that way, or no, you just have your phone in your hand? All right, do I have any volunteers for somebody to take the lead to draft some language? We've got 5 people on the call. And I'm willing to do one, but want to see what, you know, members are most interested in. Any volunteer on light pollution? Greg? Okay, I'll just make a note. I'll ask for Greg in the next meeting. Okay, then can we get a volunteer on noise pollution? I know more about noise pollution. Kind of thinking that, well, Craig's volunteering, you're doing what I want to. If you're really eager, I'm not going to take it away. Nobody else wants to do noise. Thinking of Pat and your conversation about trains, but if you're good, I'll put Craig down for both of those. They're related. All right, somebody other than Craig want to take the lead on the minimizing, you know, neighborhood impact of the trucks, or the corridor idea, Gwen? Okay. Okay, and then on the monitors, I've been doing some work on that. We had our speaker. If you watch the video, you can see Dr. Liu and what he has, and he'll have results of his larger study. And then Pat, okay, and Pat, I know you've got an idea on a group that could fund that. So, okay, and then feel free to contact me too. I'm willing to help on these. So thank you, Craig. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Gwen. Anything else jump out in terms of priorities? Just environmental sustainability. These all have environmental components, but they're also very port related, or anything. I guess I want to throw out, port related priority, and I'll nominate myself to work more on that. Just, it's kind of been assigned to me earlier too, better understanding of the grants available to our community, and where, already got on the minutes, where how the money is being broken down, and to get a note. Pat. I can't hear you, Pat.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
There's a truck working group. There's all kinds of aspects of the truck problem that are being addressed, and I know that there's a working group, and maybe we ought to appoint somebody and ask if we can be a part of that group and kind of contribute and monitor that way. They're looking at traffic control, they're looking at truck routing, they're looking at idle time, they're looking at impacts of the trucks on the roadways, a whole bunch of stuff. I know that Commissioner Moreno Linares is active in that group too.
Yes,
what do you think of?
This is a port working, Pat?
Well, I think it's community group, and probably has port involvement in it.
Oh, I've never been there.
But the remediation plan that our neighborhood council adopted some months ago has the one aspect, and that is the damage to streets from having heavy trucks on local streets in it. But the problem is so much bigger than that. A number of people, particularly in Wilmington, have gotten very active in trying to work on those things, on those issues. It goes to the use of the vacant lots that the port owns throughout Wilmington. There's something like 570 vacant parcels that they use, and some of them they're putting containers on, and some of them the only access is along streets that have 6,000-pound wheel load limits, for example. So there's a number of aspects that they're working on, but we could go off on our own or so on, but I think at least we ought to monitor and see if we can participate in whatever that working group is doing. I don't know anything else much about it, except it has a few heavyweight people on it.
Is this kind of centered a lot in the Wilmington community?
I'm sorry, say again?
A lot of individuals in the Wilmington community involved in this particular working group?
I don't know who's involved in it. I know some folks from some activists in Wilmington are involved in it. Yeah.
Okay,
Could you email the committee, Pat? Some of the people to contact to say if Gwen's working on this, then she has it, or if we are interested, so then we can talk about it.
Well, I'm going to be talking to Commissioner Linares anyway on another matter, so I can certainly ask her. But I can talk to you, Gwen. I'll give you a call tomorrow, and I'll give you some contact stuff, and maybe you can find out more about it. I mean, it's not we can do both. We can do our own sort of thing too, but if there's something already going on that we can participate in and get more bang for the buck, maybe we ought to consider doing that too.
Yeah, the suggestion that I had just mentioned to this group was something that I had repeated on several occasions to individuals in Wilmington when talking about this issue over quite a few years, 3 or 4 years. But this is something that I've never heard anything on. But yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So hopefully it's an action item, Pat, if you can have the details. Both the next name who the contact person is, who the leader is, and that'll help frame our resolution.
Yeah.
We can do that on the light stuff too. The port has a really long history of looking at the light pollution issues and downcast lighting and stuff like that too. There's a lot that's been done on that already. I'm sure that the environmental people, Chris Cannon's group, would be glad to brief us, or whoever it is that's picked up the baton on that and looking at it for us would be helpful.
And we can look at our neighborhood council, minutes and the past letters that they've done with specific mitigation do address all three of these issues. Last,
Yeah, the lighting stuff has been going on for years and years. Excuse me, and they came up with the solution. They hired, consultants, and it's been a requirement in terminal development for a long time. They have the downcast lighting and have them dimmed when the terminal's not operating and things like that. So some work has been done, and but Cynthia Gagne made a suggestion that ought to be included in the remediation plan that the Northwest adopted a few months ago, and it is one of the items that is in there. And it's probably aimed more at doing some light shutdowns when terminals are not operating. But there's an item there. So this is, it ties into that pretty well.
right.
That's it.
Thank you.
Well, with this, some of the things that we've commented on, where is this in the process? I mean, for example, we've made comments on the West Harbor improvements. Where are some of these other comment letters in the stages of development? Maybe we should start reviewing what the timelines are on some of those things.
Oh, that's perfect.
Oh, and Pat,
Yeah,
I think there's some background noise.
yeah. Hey guys, 5 minutes.
Follow up
Hey,
on those statements.
Well, the comments have been made. The comments have been acknowledged. The comments. What happens now is that the proponents for the project, the applicant, which in this case is the port, and the consultants then will analyze them. And when they come out with the next stage of whatever it is that they're doing, for example, if it was an NOP on preparation of an EIR, there'll be probably an EIR, a draft EIR that comes out, and the response to comments may be included in there. Probably won't be until the final EIR. So what we can do to find out timing, a timing on responses and so forth, would be to call the port and just ask them, what do you see coming down for Phillips? What do you see coming down? And what's timing on Vopak, Ecosym, on the container parking lot, on the fish facility over on Terminal Island? Those are the 5 that we've commented on. But there's no
Essay recycling too.
there's no official timeline or something that they have to meet. Well, there are, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not relevant here. So
That's on my to-do list, right? So Chris Cannon's the person I could contact and ask if he could brief our committee on the status of those. I think that's the best.
yeah, even an email to him, just saying, what's the status on these things, and he'd give you a response. I don't know if it needs a meeting, because he's not going to be able to tell us much more.
Yeah,
in the
no,
hands of the consultants and the real parties.
okay, so I'll do a request there so we are hearing directly from them, but thanks for describing the process. And yeah, I haven't seen any of the things we've commented on are at this other phase for us to follow up on, but I kind of work the agenda. So if there is, and it comes in, then we have that to discuss, and hopefully they take our suggestions seriously. We made agnostic to see how it is. So maybe
we're likely to get busy in the next couple of months with some draft EIRs or some NOPs, notices of preparation, and other things on a couple of big projects, because for a couple of reasons. One is that they tend to come out towards the end of the year anyway. Second, there's a bunch of people who are retiring, and they're going to get them out on the street before the end of the year. Anyway, so we'll see one for the fish market moving over to where the bocce ball courts are in the Catalina terminal. That's probably the next big one that's coming along. And then we'll probably get a supplemental EIR, draft EIR issued on the concert venue at West Harbor, probably in the next couple of months, I would guess, too. But that's not a major thing like the fish market one will be. So we'll get busy on that when that comes out. I do have one comment on the Purple Air thing. Tom. You know, I was a little bit shocked when your colleague from the college came out and he said he thought it'd take about 130,000 to do the kind of study that we had in mind. But it seems to me that if we put out a call and ask for proposals, maybe some grad students or something like that could come up with a program to tie the existing Purple Air monitors that are already reporting out there by Wi-Fi, tie them together so we can kind of get a map or an impact map or something like that. Should be pretty easy. And then take that to the Harbor Community Benefits Foundation and see if they'll fund it. We have two really good contacts. 2 of the 5 members of the board there are going to support, will support spending money on that in the next round of funding. What do you think?
You're waiting for her to finish.
Yeah,
Can I sit down with you, Tom, and we'll see if there's, you know, how to approach Cal State students or, you know, a professor or something like that to come up with a program like that.
I think it's really nice.
yeah, no, I'm happy to sit down and talk with whomever. Craig?
That was exactly what I was talking about. All this information is already available. All we need to do is have a database. When I spoke with Purple Air, all that information is readily available. We can go into their site and do it. It just takes the aggregating of the information is what we need more than we need because the information's already there.
Exactly.
And then so that's what a database does. It collects the information and puts it into, and you can then extract it into and put it into a form you can understand. So it'd be fairly. I mean, I understand the fundamentals of it, but that's why I was saying, Thomas, that you know, we could. I mean, the neighborhood council could easily fund a small pilot or fund somebody to put together something like that. I know there's parts of it already in the Purple Air group that they do stuff like this, that maybe we could get a student or to, you know, just sit there, look at the data, get the data, put it and extract it to a database program, and then output it into stuff that we can use.
Yeah, no,
Sure.
I think that makes a lot of sense. We can try to explain to Dr. Lou that, you know, we don't need to spend money. It's really would be somebody who just has the expertise to analyze that, right, and put the data in. Because his study, you know, went way up past, you know, Carson. He's going to do what he's going to do for his research and publication, and it could be a good opportunity for us.
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons why I think that the HCBF is a good entity to go to. For one thing, they already have the 501c3 status. It's also a repository and recipient for the port mitigation funds, a program established some years ago. And then it has some real heavyweights on that board. Plus, it's their money. We don't have to spend ours on doing it. And it carries a lot of weight because it's a reputable, credible organization.
Yeah,
So,
to meet with him about funding. Now, I know Dr. Lou, I'll just share with you, he had a baby girl 2 days ago. He's going to be on leave, so, you know, might not talk, might say baby, but he's not going to be doing any projects for a period of time.
Excuse me, you're breaking up a lot, Pat. When you're all that background noise is interfering with his conversation, so I'm not even able to understand half of what he's saying.
Could you hit the mute button on an occasion, Pat? When you're
well,
Yeah, okay.
I think the main problem is that my phone is almost dead.
Okay, so I'll repeat what I said.
I'll ask the dinner table to
Mute though
quiet down.
before I say that.
Okay, I was cutting out too. I was on the stuff I was hearing from the group and everything too. So anyway, I've said my piece. We can do it, and then any number of groups, us included, and Cal State Dominguez Hills or Harvard College, anybody can submit a proposal to HCBF for funding. I am positive actually that we can get support for a project from a couple of the five, two of the five members of the HCBF board, probably three. Anyhow,
Okay.
that's my piece.
Yes, that's a priority. I'll try to talk to the folks who could fund it to get their support to pay for it. What I was sharing about Dr. Lou is that his wife just had a baby a few days ago, so I won't be in touch with him. I can see if any of his students are working, but I think I'll look more broadly at LA Harbor, wherever, if there's somebody who wants to look at the data. And I thought a student might be better than Dr. Lou, actually. He's trying to do research and get published, in a certain way that's independent of what our specific applied needs are. But hopefully one of the students would be more interested in money and actual practical experience. So I've got some nice specifics there to try to follow up on the air monitors. Gwen.
There's another follow-up. So at the last Clean Air Action Plan update meeting, there was a lot of concern that known sensors, and we've discussed this before, around the area, South Coast AQMD is looking for a new contractor because they're all malfunctioning. We have one over at what's the school over there, the administration building over there at Brookstone? Is that, over by the Science Center? A lot of the schools actually have sensors that still just are not functioning. Part of the problem is that there was a collaboration. There was supposed to be, LAUSD was supposed to have Wi-Fi on site, and they never put Wi-Fi on site. So even if South Coast AQMD has put in the fanciest sensors in the world, there's no Wi-Fi. So that's just a hot mess. But that's a requirement that sensitive sites should be monitored, those specifically, and that should be part of the we're talking about purple air and everything, and that's what's kind of spurring this, is that we need purple air in order to keep these people honest. It would be good to get a follow-up on what's going on there. What's South Coast AQMD? Did they get the contractor? What's going on with LAUSD? Are they going to have Wi-Fi? Are they going to follow up on their end of the deal? What's happening?
Okay. Any other comments or priorities? Okay, we'll reach the part of the agenda where we could adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second that.
All right, thank you all. Okay, so I look forward to seeing everyone. Same, Tuesday. This is the 18th, so that's the third Tuesday, 6:30 in November. So I look forward to seeing everyone. Please, as you have new ideas or things come up, email them to me. I was looking for your input on the agenda. I did get it put in the proper place for our committee on time. Getting used to making that a stop as I come home from dropping my kids off or come home from work. And I think we're operating well, and appreciate help taking notes to the co-chair. So thank you, Gwen. And with that, I'll bid everybody a good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good
Good
night.
night, everyone.
Nice to see you,
Talk to you
everyone.
later, David.
All right, to see you. Great.